Alrighty, sorry for the delay. We're a couple minutes late, but welcome to episode 7 of Sports Politicians Agree to Disagree. I'm your host for the afternoon, Alan Hinton, coming to you from Wilmington, North Carolina. We're going to start with our introductions. We're going to start with Turner.
And John Turner, Chesapeake, Virginia, by the way of Bad Newport News. On Twitter, everybody love John.
Leonard Lentz.
Leonard Lentz Jr. coming live out of Houston, Texas, by way of Killeen, Texas. You can hit me on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff at Lentz Jr.
Perfect Purvis.
Perfect Purvis coming from Tech City, Texas originally. Now I'm living in Kouvola, Finland. You can find me anywhere on social media at Perfect Purvis.
Again, I'm Alan Hinton. My personal Twitter is aflash79. Our Twitter is just at Sports Politicen. You can also find us on Facebook. Sports Politicen presents Agree to Disagree. We're going to start off today first with Mr. Purvis. He's got a pretty interesting topic I think that everybody here is going to really enjoy. So we'll let him introduce it himself.
Okay, my topic is white athletes aren't getting due for their athleticism. This actually covers a wide range of sports, but today we're going to try to keep it short, so we'll focus on football. And I only have a few points because it is a very simple topic, and I think a lot of people understand it. White athletes are led very early to be told that they're not as athletic as their darker skinned counterparts, and they're also led a lot earlier in life that sports doesn't have. And I'm thinking more than like just looking at the NFL, where are your white cornerbacks? Where are your white running backs? And all this blase that people say all the time and no one has an answer for it. They're like, well, there just aren't a lot of them. It's not that there aren't a lot of them. It's that when they are having opportunities to play these positions and to show that they're just as athletic as a black athlete, they're persuaded, they're swayed to go to another route. I was coaching Little League football a couple years ago. I have 2 kids. I have a black kid, I have a white kid. Both of them fast as all get out. I'm not the head coach. I'm the offensive coordinator. My head coach tells me this kid is going to be the running back, who happens to be the black kid. Why does this kid get to be the running back? Well, because his dad was a running back, and this is what he's going to do. We're going to let the other kid play quarterback. Why? He's just as fast as this kid, but because of the pigment of his skin, we're going to put him in a position of, you know what, he's going to have to be in charge of things outside of just his athleticism. And that's the continual thing that we have with the sport, is that because these athletes are of a different skin than the normal, what you project when you see an athletic player, we decide to push them into these roles. And that's why these white athletes aren't getting their respect that they deserve as being athletes.
I think that if I had to guess, I'd say a lot of us probably agree to a certain extent, but we'll let Lentz go into a little bit of detail first.
Okay, I'll go first. I agree to a point. As you were saying before, you know, if we have a young kid, a black kid versus a white kid, they both have the same skill set, same height, same speed. That black athlete is going to be pushed more towards athletics than that white athlete. Never mind that they both have the same skill set that they can both exhibit, and that that white athlete is pushed towards something more educational field, or you know, you can be a doctor, you can do all this, whereas a black athlete, well, this is your only avenue. You're either going to have to play ball, or you're going to have to rap, or you're going to have to be on TV or something like that. So from that standpoint, I get it. I do understand. I do agree with that. But I feel like like you said before, that's hit on at an early age. Like we don't really see it or really think about it as much when they're earlier on because we wait till they get to the NFL when you don't see the white running backs or the white receivers, but you see all these athletic tight ends who are white. And you're like, well, why are they athletic and these receivers aren't? It's not that they're not athletic. It's just that when they're younger, if they're smaller, they're pushed towards other things. And you can do the same thing with basketball as well. You don't see as many white players who are considered athletic, and if they are, then they get different buzzwords around it. They're surprisingly fast or surprisingly quick, rather than they're just quick. You look at Wes Welker and how quick he is, and he's deceptively fast. No, he's just really quick. He's just like Darren Sproles. He's really quick, but you don't get that same tag. And I think I think it's a subconscious thing that people see. They're not really thinking about it. It's been this way for so long that if you see something that's a variance of that, you're like, oh well, that's different. You can take it as like Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck, it was faster, I believe, than Russell Wilson in the 40 coming out, or they were similar, they were close, and it was like, well, Russell Wilson, he's really fast, and it's Andrew Luck, he's surprisingly fast. No, he's really fast. He should be considered a dual threat quarterback as well. But I think it's just looked upon differently because, he's a white athlete. And we're not used to seeing that anymore. Whereas 50 years ago, when you saw a white athlete, it was just a white athlete. So I think that's what it is.
And to piggyback off that, I think I'm gonna kind of go with P a little bit. I do think that it starts at the beginning. I feel as though when they start younger, they're pigeonholed and shoehorned into these roles based on the color of their skin. Like you said, you see white people who have crazy athleticism, but then they're told maybe you should try quarterback, maybe you should try offensive line, maybe you should, now we're starting to see more, a lot of white linebackers and things like that, but they could be wide receivers. They could be running backs. They could be skill position players. And then you have the black athletes. They're more or less steered away from the quarterback position. And then that's obviously a skill position, but they're put more towards running back. They're put more towards wide receivers. And again, it is a subconscious thing. Like with Jake Locker, Jordy Nelson, those are two great athletes. But all you hear is Jake Locker is deceptively fast, or Jordy Nelson is, this and that, and I just don't understand that. How can you look at those two players specifically and say anything is deceptive about them? Now, Jordy Nelson's coming back after an injury, so his speed may be gone a little bit. But pre-injury, Jordy Nelson was one of the fastest players in the entire NFL. Didn't matter whether he was white, black, blue, and I really think that it really starts early with the coaches, whoever's coaching these kids, and stigmas that white players are less athletic than black players. And it's something that bothers me. Every time I hear somebody say a white player is deceptively fast, it bothers me. It really does bother me because I'm like, no, these dudes are just fast. I don't think that that's something that should continue. We need to look at what they're actually doing on the field and the skills that they actually bring to the table, as opposed to attaching labels to them.
I agree with that. I definitely agree that it starts at a young age, but I think it's a broader thing than that theme. You've got a lot of different sports out there, and I feel as a whole, white people are going to more of those sports. You can count really on one hand the number of American-born, African descent players that play baseball. Probably the same thing for hockey. I don't watch a lot of hockey, so I can't really tell you just how many black hockey players there are, but I'm willing to bet there's not more than 10. So you look around at our major sports, how many black golfers are there? How many black baseball players are there? How many black soccer players are there, like American-born soccer players? We end up looking at just these two major sports because those are the ones that are on TV the most, but the reality is it's not that there are more black athletes and white athletes. It's just that our athletes are concentrated into two sports. You've got guys that were pretty good athletes that chose to play other sports. Jeff Samardzija is the first guy that comes to mind. For a 6'5" receiver, he was pretty athletic, but he chose to play baseball and be a pitcher. I feel like there are a lot of guys who are in that same boat. If they've got the size to play both, they'll go choose one of the lower impact, to be honest, sports, golf or soccer or baseball. Hockey, I wouldn't say is lower impact, but there are not a lot of athletes that are playing hockey that play other sports. But you've got guys who play baseball and then play other things. And if it comes down to it, a lot of those guys are going to choose to play baseball because they make similar or more money and don't have to worry about concussions or torn ACL, broken this, broken that, shoulder clavicle fracture, all that kind of stuff. So, what we really need to focus on when you talk about the lower or the earlier start for sports, in my opinion, is why is it that African-American parents aren't trying to get their kids into tennis or baseball or things like that. And I know a lot of it, they talk about a lot is the equipment. If you play football, all you need is a football. If you play basketball, you can literally play ball with a basketball and a milk crate with the bottom cut out. If you play tennis, you need a racket, you need balls, you need a court to play at. Same thing with baseball. You can't just go out there with a stick and a ball and really get transferable skills. So a lot of it comes with the startup. And that may be something that has to be addressed also. But there are, in my opinion, pretty good athletes that play tennis. Novak Djokovic is actually a pretty good athlete. He covers court really well, but people aren't really talking about him as an athlete. People don't talk about hockey players being really good athletes, the guys that get up and down the rink on skates quickly. There's so much that we look at, and for so many people, this issue just turns into basketball and football. But yeah, those other sports are dominated by the same race, and no one makes any kind of comments about that. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you made up, bringing up that why athletes tend to go to other sports, citing the money that goes into it for equipment and whatnot, because typically what we think of when we think of athletes is the NFL and the NBA. We don't really think of our baseball players as athletes, when if you think about it, they are. If you look at the catches, the arm strength you have to get it from the warning track to the second base, or from the warning track to home plate, to have that arm strength, to be able to control the ball that much, the hand-eye coordination you have to hit a ball coming at you 90 miles an hour, that's athleticism right there. And tennis is often looked at as a soft sport or for an upper class sport, but if you've ever played tennis, you understand how much agility and strength, and you got to be able to control your body that goes into it, because if you hit the line, you're out. Like, people don't realize how much athleticism goes into these other sports, because we don't really talk about the athleticism side of it unless we're talking about football or basketball. Because you can see. You can see someone running fast on the football field. You can see someone jumping high on a basketball court. You don't really see it as much in baseball or in tennis or hockey. So I think that goes into it as well.
Yeah, I think that part of the problem is people don't know. There's no clear definition for athleticism. So if you're watching the two sports that are on TV the most, that's what you think is athleticism. Basketball is constantly going up and down, running and jumping. Football is stop and go, but you can see people who are running fast with the equipment on, the running backs, wide receivers who jump over the top or dive over the goal line. But in baseball, you mentioned there's athleticism as well. Hand-eye coordination is athleticism. Jumping up to rob a catch when you have to scale the wall is athleticism. Trying to avoid the tag at home plate is athleticism. Trying to field your position, especially shortstop, second base, avoiding a double play, all of that is athleticism. So I think part of the issue is that there's not a clear term for what athleticism is. Mike Trout and Bryce Harper are two of the best athletes. Mike Trout can dunk, and he can dunk pretty easily, actually. But a lot of people would see he's a baseball player and are surprised. but I think that's where it goes to. I think once people can get a grip on what they think athleticism is or what it should be, I think it would be noticed a little bit better.
I think that's a pretty good way of looking at it. On the topic of athletes who's actually brought up, Mr. Lentz is going to talk about Andrew Luck and his contract for a little bit.
This crazy contract that he just got. Anyone that knows me know I'm a former player, so I will always be for an athlete getting his money over everything else. You got to get that money. People talk about loyalty in sports to the organizations. There is no loyalty. It is a business. Get your money where you can. However, this money that Andrew Luck just got, I feel like it is going to kill the Colts in the long run as far as their team success and sustainability, because I feel like they haven't learned anything from the Peyton Manning era. Yeah, they were good. They were good for a long time. Some people are okay with, getting 10 wins yearly, which is a really good feat to get, but they were in a bad division for pretty much that entire time, the Colts. There weren't any. They had, I think it was like 2 or 3 years where the Titans were actually good, but besides that, majority of the teams in that division were 500 and below. Now you look at now, I feel like they're trying to follow that same model as having a good quarterback, which Luck is a good quarterback, but now you got to look at the division is getting better. The Texans have had a top 5 defense for the last few years. The Jaguars are getting a lot better. You look at the young talent that's on there. It's still the Jaguars, but there's a lot of young talent that they can get. If Gus Bradley can ring them in, they'll be okay. And then you look at the Titans, really young team. They look like they're starting to build up on offense. On offense, they look like they have a very young nucleus that can be really. If Green Beckham can get it together, Marcus Mariota can get it together, that team could be something formidable for the time coming. So I think that the Colts right now, I feel like they put way too much money into Andrew Luck. I understand that most people feel like you have to lock up a franchise type quarterback, but looking at his numbers, he hasn't been that top 5 quarterback that you would think would get that type of money. So to me, I feel like Andrew Luck getting all this money is going to be bad for the Colts. They're not going to be able to build that offensive line. They're not going to build up that defense around him because he's given too much money. And that's how I feel about it. That's why I feel like it's bad for the Colts.
Jarvis, what's your thoughts?
I agree with Lynch that definitely got. I am gonna go with the money, but I don't blame the Colts for doing it. Of course, like everybody's been saying, it's hard to find a proven franchise quarterback, and I agree with what you said, Lance. They're just following a model that works for them, and you got to think of it from the team standpoint. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. No, they're not a team that you're like, oh my gosh, they're a Super Bowl contender every year. But in that AFC, what is it, AFC South that they're in? The AFC South? Yeah. Whatever division they're in.
The South, man.
I don't remember the names of the division.
South, man.
AFC
South. The South. Come on, man.
The thing is, if you say AFC South, who? Titans? You're thinking, if I got Andrew Luck, I got a better shot at squeaking into the playoffs if I have to. And they're banking on that. Is it wise? No. But at the point where they have no real other options, and it looks like they don't really have any long-term plans for how they want to set their team up to be more successful, they're just trying to stay above the line right now. And I think what they're doing is what they think is in their best interest. But I do agree with you 100%. Down the line, it's going to come to bite them in the butt. They're going to hope that Andrew Luck is remnant of Peyton Manning and willing to, restructure his deal later on. I don't think he will. I think he'll keep his money, he'll get in a bad situation, and in a couple of years it'll be the Jaguars division.
I agree. And I was going to actually end up saying that same thing. Right now, Jacksonville's got a pretty young team. they're continuing to put pieces together and spending money right now on veterans. And when those contracts expire, they'll have a pretty good team of youngsters around them. Before we get to that, though, I just want to just quickly talk about the Colts and echo what Lynch said in a lot of ways. Right now, you look around the league, we've got quarterbacks that are getting paid really good money, and there's a few of them that have good teams around them and keep good teams around them. As soon as the Ravens signed Flacco to his contract, and you can debate whether or not he was worth the money or not, I don't really think it matters when you look at the dynamic of what it did to the rest of the team. They ended up having to cut Anquan Boldin and other veterans and weren't able to go out and chase guys, and then swung and missed on a left tackle the next year in free agency. But in trying to lock up Flacco and then Eugene Monroe, they messed around and didn't have money for a lot of other things. They had to get Dumerville on a discount, things like that. Teams aren't that creative. We're going to end up having to see what happens with Seattle now that they've given Russell Wilson that kind of money because the rest of his teammates are looking. Same thing with Jay Cutler and the Bears. They ended up having to let go of some veterans. I don't know if they would have been very good regardless because they were kind of on the way down beforehand. But you look around the league at all these teams that are giving these big quarterbacks, and then the next 2 years, how many contracts they're letting go of. Think about this. The Colts, if we're going to be perfectly honest, aren't very deep at many positions. Their offensive line is not good. I love Frank Gore, but they have issues in the run game. The run game just isn't there. They've got some holes on defense, so on and so forth. So we're already talking about a team that has more questions than answers, giving up a lot of their salary flexibility for a quarterback that got beat to hell last year. I mean, even when he was in a game, he wasn't healthy. And they can't put money towards protecting him like a lot of teams would. A lot of teams that had an asset that they feel like is their future, like Andrew Luck, would have gone out and put money into, getting in some veteran offensive linemen, trying to, spend draft picks, so on and so forth. And I think they did draft some linemen, but, they're not going to go after the top right guard or left tackle in free agency to try to help keep Andrew Luck upright. And now they can't afford to. So they have to really focus on making sure they hit home runs every time they draft an offensive lineman now, because they won't be able to afford to go get one if they mess up. I think that hurts them in two ways. Now their draft has to go to how do we keep Andrew Luck alive and with weapons as opposed to what do we do to better our team. And also they don't have the money to try to bring in guys they can't get. Turney, you have any thoughts? I think the only Colts fan we got here.
Yeah. So let me just put this out here. Full disclosure, I'm a Colts fan. Been a Colts fan since 1996 when we almost stunned Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game. So let me put that out there. Now, one thing I didn't hear y'all mention, I could have missed it. The market sets what the next good quarterback makes. So us paying Luck was somewhat a product of that. We almost had to do it because the market had been set, for previous quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, all of them. They had been paid, so now it was Luck's turn. Russell Wilson, all of them had to get paid, so that's cool. I'll point out, though, that the way that we are building our team is the way that we've always built the team. We tried to get a stud quarterback, and we had that with 18, and we've always built on the fringes around him and not really invest in a lot of depth. So when you can look at the Colts now, look at the Colts then, and you can see you pay the top tier quarterback. Luck's not a top tier quarterback, but in Jim Irsay's mind is. Then you pay the offense. Hopefully he papers over the deficiencies of the defense, and that's how you get to the playoffs. Same thing we did with Peyton. So I wasn't surprised at all when we paid him. My issue is that formula didn't seem to work when Peyton was there, and Peyton is far superior to what Luck is now. As a Colts fan, Luck is overrated. I mean, there's really no other way to say that. His best season was the season before last, when he led the league in passing attempts, 4,761 yards, 40 TDs, 16 picks. The 16 picks weren't bad. From what I saw, though, he had about 25 interceptable passes, which is not good at all. So about 9 of them were dropped. The problem is that his greatness or his skill was essentially based on volume, not really efficiency. So if he's not putting up the volume, he's not really doing a lot to help the team. Yes, the supporting cast is not that good around him. I would agree with that. The only really good player on the offensive line is Costanzo. We can't get holes in the running game for Gore, who's aging. We struck out there. Gore was okay last year. Andre Johnson was a bust. But now that we paid him all of this money, there's no way that we can build around the fringes. And the way that we draft players, we still are not good at drafting players. None. We cannot draft players, and that's how you get essentially, I hate to say this, but cheap labor. You get your good players, you develop them until you can't pay them anymore because they're too good. But we're just not good at the draft. So the problem with us paying him that much money, we're already bad at drafting, but that just puts more pressure on us to get hits. And as we've seen, we had the last probably good draft pick that was Dante Moncrief, and he's slow developing, but you can see that the skill is there. But other than that, we're not doing good. We're not doing good, and this contract is going to handicap us. Y'all talked about the division. I'm not a big believer in the Jags. Blake Bortles' accuracy is like Eli Manning's QB vision cone. It's about this small. I can't. His wide receivers have wide catch radiuses, so I'm not a big believer in Blake. But that defense, if Gus Bradley get them right, I'm a full believer in that defense. Dante's coming back, so I'm a full believer in that. Mariota's going to get his game together, so I believe that. Lentz mentioned Dorian Green-Beckham. He's definitely on the come up, and the Texans have a good defense. They got Nuke. Now they got Brock, for whatever that's worth, but everybody's on the come up. We can't just depend on winning the division anymore to get in the playoffs. We have to do real work to do it, and the way that our team is set up, that's not a guarantee right now.
One thing that I want to talk about that you touched on is how the market sets the demand, sets the pay for the quarterback. I really kind of hate that. And he's not the best, source for anything. But I really like what Gilbert Arenas said about this whole topic. These days, the teams come with these contracts assuming this is what they have to pay to keep a guy. When Gilbert Arenas got his $100 million contract years and years and years ago, he himself didn't feel like he was a $100 million guy. He said he thought he was going to get $85 million at most, which to me means that was what he was expecting. That's what he would have been fine with. So he said, who am I to tell this team I'm not worth that extra $20 million if they feel like I am? So he took it. And you can't be mad at him. Like Lynch said earlier, you can't be mad at a guy taking that money and feeding his family. But I always have to wonder, if you come, with that same range, if you come to Andrew Luck and offer him $20 million total less, does he turn it down? If you go to Joe Flacco and offer him $20 million less than what they got, does he turn it down? If you go to Russell Wilson, so on and so forth. I don't know that these guys, and I'm not saying, I guess I am saying you lowball a guy, but I'm not saying that you try to offer him pennies on a dollar, but at the same time, is it necessary for every quarterback who gets re-signed to be the highest paid quarterback in the league every year? Every time we get a new quarterback get a deal, he's the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. That's been the case for the last, 6 years, something like that? That doesn't have to be. If you can get a guy who's just cool with getting paid as your star quarterback, what's the difference in him making $85 million over 6 years and $105 million over 6 years if he's still making a lot of money? $85 million is a lot of money. And that $20 million really saves you $5 million more dollars on the cap each season, $4 million, whatever the case may be. And that helps. And teams need that, to me. So I've never been a big fan of letting the market dictate what a guy's worth as opposed to letting his play dictate what a guy's worth. Right now, as most people probably know, I'm a Redskins fan, If we come out next year and pay Kirk Cousins more than what Andrew Luck is getting paid right now, I'm gonna be pissed because he's not worth it, and I don't care what the market says.
And I agree with that to a point, because essentially what they're doing, these owners are doing, they're paying guys because they're afraid another owner might pay this guy. When both of those owners know that the guy isn't worth it, but just to get a leg up on the other guy, I'm gonna spend more money than I actually have to. Like, I feel like if the owners were smart enough, they could get together and they would be able to dictate things like these agents are doing. These agents are getting together. Hey, I'm gonna try to get my guy this amount of money. You try to get him. You say that you're putting out this much, and we're saying, he can't get 10. Like who was it? Tyler Johnson for Miami. That's his name. Who got $12 million when nobody in the world thought he was worth $12 million. Like agents can dictate that. These owners would be like, you know what? I'm a Broncos fan. For those who don't know, if people were acting like John Elway and say, okay, Brock is good. He's not $72 million good. So if you want to give him $72 million, you can give it to him. He's not worth it. Now, in the end, he might be worth $72 million, but I have no problem with him taking that type of stance, saying I'm not going to pay an exorbitant amount of money for a guy that we don't know about. Like Matt Flynn playing, 2 games and getting crazy contracts? Like, stuff like that. They need to be saved for themselves, but then on the back end, they get mad at these players saying, oh, they want to take all this money. Well, if you're going to give it out, take it. So I agree with that point, Alan.
Yeah, I think Matt Flynn is one of those perfect examples there. In addition to being a Redskins fan, I'm also a Chicago Bulls fan, and we've made a lot of perplexing free agent acquisitions over the last 2 weeks. I haven't really been excited about much of what we've done since we traded Derrick Rose. But the one I want to talk about specifically is Dwayne Wade. In the group that we're in, a lot of the Bulls fans have seemed to be pretty upset about it. But outside of that, looking on Twitter, looking on ESPN, so on and so forth, most people seem to be excited about Dwayne Wade coming to Chicago. While I really do appreciate the narrative of him finishing his career at home, that seems to be really cool now that LeBron James has won a championship. Dwight Howard just went home. From a basketball standpoint, to me, it doesn't make sense. I don't like it in any way, shape, form, or fashion. There are 2 things that I want to highlight with this signing. At the beginning of the offseason, when we traded Derrick Rose, Gar Forman said the Bulls were going to get younger and more athletic. 2 of our starters now, well, it depends on who you consider starter. Etuan Moore started a lot of games at small forward for us. He's considerably younger than Dwayne Wade, but Dunleavy was technically our starting small forward. He's a year older than Wade was. So I guess in that we got younger by a year, but not much more athletic. And Derrick Rose is both younger and at this point still more athletic than Rajon Rondo. But in doing this, we gave away a lot of our flexibility, a lot of our shooting. We have very little floor space, and if the starting lineup pans out the way people expect it to, with Robin Lopez, Taj Gibson, Jimmy Buckets, Dwayne Wade, and Rajon Rondo as our starters, none of those guys really have, lights out shooting ability. Jimmy Butler can shoot. He's not an outstanding shooter, but he shot 31% from 3 last year, which isn't great. Actually, Rajon Rondo shot a higher percentage. He shot less threes, but a higher percentage from 3 last year than Jimmy Butler did. To me, that kind of tells you everything you need to know. He was 36% the year before, which isn't bad, but the reality is I wouldn't consider Jimmy Butler a 3-point shooting threat. Dwayne Wade shot 16% last year. He was 7 for 44 throughout the season. That's not good at all. And we really have to figure out some way to stretch the floor. I don't know that Nico is a guy that you want to start just because of his struggles last season, but it also kind of looks like we don't have a choice. We may have to start Nico at the 4 just to make up for the fact that we right now have 4 guys that'll be starting that can't shoot threes at all. If you count Butler as a shooter. Another thing is you've got 3 guys on the wing now that averaged 4 assists a game last year or more. Rondo led the league in assists, which sounds good until you think about the fact that all three of those guys had the ball a lot. I don't know that there's enough basketball for Rondo, Butler, and Wade to really play the way that they need to play to be successful. Rondo's assists, I think, are going to be slashed. He may end up averaging 7 or 8 assists, which still isn't bad, but it's a huge drop off from last year. And Wade has his assist numbers are already going down. He hasn't averaged more than 6 assists in 3 years. So we've got a declining guy that's already a bad fit for what we're doing. And one of the things that people and even our front office said was the most exciting thing about it was his ability to go out and recruit other players. But what free agent has Dwayne Wade recruited to to Miami since since LeBron James left? Goran Dragic was the biggest name they got, and he was a trade. So I don't see him being a big time recruiter, especially coming into the offseason. He'll be 35, and there's no history outside of LeBron James to show that he can do it. I'm gonna try not to go too long, so I'm gonna let you guys get into it.
Yeah.
Let's be a Heat fan.
Well, I'll go ahead and go. Anyone who don't know, I'm a huge Dwayne Wade and Heat fan. So I was pissed. I understand him leaving, but I was pissed when Dwayne Wade left and went to Chicago. But I understand. But I understand him going to Chicago because it was home. But as far as basketball sense, it doesn't really make sense to me because you got 3 guys who command the ball in Rondo, Butler, and Wade. All of them need the ball, so there's not enough ball to go around. You don't have a head coach in Hoiberg who can take the reins and be like, hey, this is what's going to happen. That's what Butler was going on after him earlier in the year last year because he wouldn't step up and be hard on the guys. Now, what are you going to do with a guy? You can't say nothing to Dwayne Wade. He got 3 titles already. He's 35 years old. What you going to say to him? You going to tell him something? Rondo hasn't listened to anybody since, Doc Rivers? And I don't think he really listened to Doc. So you going to tell me Hoiberg is going to be able to stop Rondo from doing what he wants to do? And Butler's already shown he has no problem stepping up and saying something about him in the media. So I feel like this collection of talent, while on paper you're like, oh, okay, there might be talent on there, but if it's not cohesive, then it doesn't really matter how good they are. You know what I mean? And then as far as Rondo I feel like I'm sorry, not Rondo, Wade, I feel like it's bad because he's my favorite player, like I said, but he has not developed a shot at all. He has relied solely for 13 years on athleticism. And players like that do not last. They don't age well. You have to be able to shoot. You got to be able to add something to the team. Like Ray Allen, people look at Ray Allen now or his last couple years like, oh, he's just a shooter. If you look back to his earlier years, as Purvis said before on one debate before we were talking about, he was that man. Ray Allen did it all. Shooting, dribbling, off the dribble. He do it all. But once you get older, you got to rely on something else. So he started relying on that shot. Just like Jason Kidd. He used to be no J, Asen is no J. But as he got older, he started to develop a better shot. Dwayne Wade has not done that. He has not done that, and it's going to hurt them in the long run. I mean, especially if you look how the game is played today where everyone's trying to be Golden State, which nobody can be Golden State, but everyone wants to get shooters now. Nobody wants to go down low. You got a bunch of guys who can't shoot in a league where shooting is the most valued thing now. So I think it's bad for Chicago as a whole to have all those players together. But I feel like, what you gonna do now? You're gonna see some serious coaching going on. Have one of them come off the bench. Well, who you gonna tell to come off the bench? Because you damn sure ain't telling D Wade to come off the bench. So.
So the Purvis just gonna laugh and move on. Like,
I'm sorry.
I thought he was about to talk.
Right. He unmuted himself literally just so we could hear him laugh.
Look, I want something different because we get it. Y'all got all these players, real shots. how do they expect to win? I don't know. I honestly feel like Chicago as an organization, I feel bad for you, Allen, because that's your squad. You got to deal with this. And you're a Redskins fan. You got a tough life over there. But Chicago, what they doing? I mean, it makes sense to no one but whoever is in their front office. And I don't even think they think it makes sense. I think they're just like, shoot, let's get Chicago back in the mix or something. But there's not going to be a mix. They didn't make any moves to make their team more competitive. They didn't do anything to make you think that in the future we have something. Like you said, they didn't go younger and more athletic. Rondo and D Wade, that doesn't help you get younger and athletic. It's okay if you sacrifice a winning season if we see that you got some potential. They didn't do that. They put together a makeshift squad, kind of like how the Lakers did when they had Karl Malone and Gary Payton back in the day. Except this squad doesn't even have that much talent to make a run for the finals or even the playoffs at that. I mean, they still might be able to get in it. It's the East. But you don't give your fan base a lot of hope with what you did. All you did was say, hey, y'all want to buy a Dwayne Wade Bulls jersey? Because we got them now, baby. That's all you don't do is ticket sales for them jerseys. People going to buy the jerseys. They're not going to come to the game. They're going to buy the jersey. That's all I'm saying. Throat cotton up.
Okay. So I'll point out that I've railed on Bulls fans in our group for years for the delusions of their fans and their front office and for thinking that they were this competitive team. I'll say that they were a championship contender up until Derrick Rose's ACL was torn against Philly, unfortunately. I'll say that. So once that happened, they never changed their mindset. They were always trying to retool instead of rebuild, and they were always trying to have these odd fits on their team. And this is really just a continuation of that. I'll bring some stats to the table real quick. According to ESPN's Real Plus Minus, Rondo was 21st among point guards. Wade was 39th among shooting guards. Wade was actually in the negative. Sorry, LRL. And Rondo was like a .30. So we look at it from that perspective. What does that mean? Rondo is a ball stopper. Rondo is a person who will dribble the hell out of the ball, and somebody who won't make the pass as long as it's not directly an assist. So that's going to muck up the offense. Then you look at Wade. Wade is a 3-time champion. Wade's a legend and a Hall of Famer. But Wade's game doesn't match what his ego is now. He still feels like he's superstar in his brain, but he's not a superstar in game now. So because of that, what ends up happening is that I feel like he's going to try to take over the offense, and the ball's going to be taken out of Jimmy's hands. This wasn't a good fit with Rondo there. But then you add Wade to it, another non-shooter, that just makes it work. And I don't want to say Hoiberg is passive. I'll just say that he has not shown that he can command the respect of all of his players. And this looks like a disaster waiting to happen. So I'll just say that I would pencil the Bulls not in the playoffs at this point. Hopefully they could change my mind, but I don't see anything in their roster to suggest that they're going to make the playoffs.
One thing I think that when you do talk about the roster, you look at the roster, I think the guy honestly most affected by Dwayne Wade coming in, I guess the combination of that and Valentine, is Doug McDermott. I don't see how or where he plays now. With Dwayne Wade here, logic would dictate Jimmy Butler starts a small forward, and then you want to get your rookie in after that. So Denzel Valentine, who seems to be a more well-rounded player than McDermott, ends up, to me, being your backup at small forward and possibly seeing some shooting guard minutes. But there's not going to be a lot of minutes for Doug McDermott. And we gave up two guys that we absolutely could have used to get him, and I'm really trying not to get too far into it because I don't like this at all. But I agree. I don't see us as a playoff team. I think that this was really done to sell jerseys, like Purvis said. It might sell tickets because of Chicago. I mean, in 2000, when we lost every game, it felt like we still sold out games. We sold out games throughout the majority of our time being terrible. So we may sell out games next year just based off Chicago's crowd being awesome. I don't know if that means folks will stay for the whole game once we down by 30 every night, but I'm really interested to see if this fails. And they even actually called it a retool, which, in my opinion, was extremely arrogant. I feel like it's arrogant to say it's a retool when we were a team that honestly wasn't good enough to make the playoffs last year. To talk about getting two, guys that are on the way down from age and performance, and talk about that's a retool to get us back into the playoffs. But I guess like on that same note of arrogance, we're gonna let Turner talk about the arrogance of the NFL.
Yeah, so this is something that I've it's been on my mind for a while, and I've talked about it, and a lot of people don't agree with me. So if we were still doing points, I would get all disagrees here. So I'll just say that. But I feel like the arrogance of the NFL to me is something that bothers me. I feel like basketball is starting to do it now, but football to me has been doing this for years, and they inundate us with their product all year. I feel like, what do we have the combine for? Why is the combine televised? Like, why do we care about OTAs? Why are these things? Why is day 3 of the draft with round 7 on TV still getting, even though it's on ESPN2? Why is that stuff constantly shoved down our throat? I feel like what they're trying to do is, in one hand, they'll talk about the player safety and we care about them, but then I feel like they hid the effects of concussions and CTE from the players. And then I also feel like they're trying to add 2 more games to the schedule, and I just feel like the arrogance of the NFL is something that really bothers me. They say protect the shield, and I understand they want to try to keep their nose as clean as possible, but then you waste all of this money chasing Tom Brady for Deflategate. Yes, Deflategate is something as far as the footballs that impacted the game, but why are people still talking about this at this point? Why is it not resolved? And I feel as though they constantly want to shove these things down our throat, and I just don't like it. Again, I know I might be in a minority there because everyone is pro football, and they think that football is everything, but I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan at all.
Tap me in. Tap me in. Tap me in.
You actually gonna talk this time?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk. I ain't even gonna come at you, Turner, because I agree with you, man. I feel you. If anybody feel you, I feel you, Turner. The NFL, man, like, if there's anything going on in NFL, it's gonna be on television. It's gonna be on the internet. They're gonna stream it. They're gonna charge you to watch it on your laptop. Something. They're gonna try to make some type of money out of it. Eventually it's gonna get to the point where, oh, you want to watch ESPN? Well, you're gonna have to get a membership to watch ESPN to watch an NFL game if you want to see it with the halftime show. Like, they're gonna come up with something. There's always some type of money grab that they're trying to do. And, I understand where you're coming from. You just don't like it, and I ain't mad at you for that. But the arrogance is there. The NFL feels that their market is whatever they want to make it. And like you said, they're making sure that we know that it's their market. They're doing things that other sports aren't even, fathoming, how to get their product out. And it can get tiring, especially the people who don't care that much about it. For me, the more football, the better. But I do understand the biggest kahunas of any sport by thinking that whatever they do, people will buy, people will do it, which brings what our to do is make a developmental football league, like what Alan proposed last week. That's all I'm gonna say, Turner. You're on the right path. I believe you on that. NFL is beyond arrogant.
I definitely agree that the NFL is arrogant, but unlike Turner, I don't have a problem with it on the whole. The only thing that I do have a problem with is what we've talked about, the league expecting us to just accept Roger Goodell being good for the league and the pretend measures that they've put in place to make the game more safe. I think it's arrogant of them to sit here and say that the things that they've done will make the game safer and reducing concussions, so on and so forth, because it's not. And the average fan, I feel like, is smart enough to know better. That part really bothers me. I don't like the fact that the NFL won't just come up. Had the NFL just been honest about it from the beginning and said that football is a violent sport, if you play, you're going to get hurt, I'd have been fine with it. But saying we're going to put measures in place to make the game a game that can't be safer, to me was disrespectful. The other parts of arrogance that you talked about, I really don't have a problem with it. You know, everybody loves the underwear Olympics. Everybody loves seeing these dudes, you know, seeing 290-pound guys try to run a 4.8. I think it's cool. I don't watch it, but I do enjoy hearing about it. I love hearing how the offensive linemen do the cone drills and stuff like that. I think it's fun. A lot of people think it's fun. It's entertainment. And like Purvis said, it's all about money. People are tuning into the NFL Network to watch the Combine. People are actually watching, what is it that they just did, All or Nothing or something I keep seeing on Twitter, where they live recorded and are streaming, I think the Cardinals can't. People want to watch that. People want to watch Hard Knocks, even though the teams don't want to do it. And that's another thing I think is arrogant as hell. You're picking teams to do Hard Knocks, even though no team wants to do it. But the point is, people are going to watch it. And I think that's one of the reasons why eventually you will see a spring football league either hosted or co-sponsored by the NFL, because they're going to make money off of anybody who wants to watch some kind of sport that isn't football after the season ends. If you get to a point you've got guys who don't want to watch the playoffs, the NBA playoffs, if they can watch, you know, spring football and see these guys leading up to after the draft, leading up to trying to make teams or develop, they're absolutely going to do it. I think within the next 5 years you'll see that. What it comes down to is most people, not named Turner, don't have a problem with the NFL's arrogance because they just love to watch football.
And I would be one of those people that don't have a problem with it. I'm one of those people who lives, breathes, surrounds themselves with football. I love everything about football. Whatever it is, you know, you can tell me, hey, they're having the training staff Olympics for the NFL. Okay, let me go watch that. Let me DVR that. You know, I love everything about football, and I think that's what they're trying to tap into. You know, they're trying to find. I don't see it as much as arrogance as it is marketing, because they're getting so much bad publicity because of the lawsuits, because of CTE, because of players getting arrested. That they're trying to get some good, let you see the other side of it. You know, not just seeing on Sunday, seeing people actually play. Well, now it's every day of the week, Sunday, Monday, Thursday night games. I'm sure they're trying to get Saturday soon, but they're trying to get you to see these players outside of just on the field. And I think that's what they're trying to tap into with the draft. You know, with the draft, you want to see them, hey, how did they get from point A to point B? How did they get from college to preparing for the draft all the way up until they actually playing in the NFL? So I feel like, you know, with fantasy football, that brought in a large amount of fans because, hey, I can win money on this. I can bet on these guys. You can also do it, or you can also attach it to, you know, they're doing, everyone's into reality TV shows now, and basically that's what Hard Knocks is. It's reality TV. You know, you get to see what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, okay, sure. I just feel like it's unnecessary. I do. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's no place for it. I'm not. No. not even going to go that far because there's obviously a place for it, and there's there are people who are going to watch it, but with everything else that the NFL is arrogant about and talks out of both sides of their face about, I feel like you constantly trying to shove this down our throats is an issue, and I'm just not a fan of it.
Man, I think that 90% of everybody is. It's going to be interesting, though, like Purvis said, what the next step is, like how we progress, how we get to see more NFL, because the reality is there's going to be more NFL. I think I saw last week they said that they're going to upload some old Super Bowl games on YouTube or something like that. So they're taking steps to be more constant year round. And so it'll be interesting to see how that turns, like what that turns into.
And they're just constantly trying to find different ways to get people into the NFL. Trying to attack the other audiences, trying to bring in as many people as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. But that's about all the time that we have. I want to thank everybody for tuning in with us, all the viewers, everybody who's going to be watching it afterwards. As always, if you have comments or questions, catch us on Facebook, hit us up on Twitter. Feel free to ask us anything. Some of us will be going live this week, so if you have something like that, we can address it beforehand. And if not, we'll catch you guys next week. Signing off. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.